Hello, everyone, and welcome to our sixth and final installment of our 2025 web series. Today, we're going to cover building long-term wealth. I'm Sara Gawick, and I'm joined by my colleague Moog Kim. We're both financial planners here at Illumination Wealth, and we're both certified financial professionals. We hold those CFP designations. If you've missed any of our presentations thus far, any of the previous five web series, know that you can find those on our YouTube page. We also post them on our LinkedIn, so go ahead and follow us on LinkedIn. But yeah, those presentations are there for you as a resource for you. Thus far, we have covered we've covered a lot of information. We've gone over introduction to investing, so we've talked about compound interest and the power of compounding, different types of accounts and how we use them to invest. We've talked about basics of the stock market. What is a stock? What is a bond? What are other investment types that we're looking to use, such as real estate? We've talked about the psychology of investing and really going over the biases that we have as investors and as humans and making sure that we aren't our own worst enemies when it comes to investing. We've gone over asset allocation and risk management, really knowing what diversification is and the importance of holding different types of investments in our accounts so that we have a well diversified portfolio. And then we've also gone over understanding the economy, markets, and trends. What's the bigger picture? What bigger items are at play? And how do we as investors understand what's going on about us? So lots of information. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to take that information and we're going to talk about how you as an investor can apply it to your life and use these tools to build wealth. What we want to do is we want to build wealth predictably. We want to build a long-term strategy that's not picking stocks. We don't want to try to pick the next meme stock, and we don't want to time markets. What we want to do is have a predictable, systematic strategy that we can use as investors to build wealth. So, just to take a step backwards, what we really need to define what is wealth. I think a lot of times when people hear wealth, they think about just being really, really rich. And that's really not what we're talking about. When we talk about wealth, it's having options. You know, you have the ability to choose a job that you actually enjoy. You're not feeling stuck and like you don't have any options to leave for a different job or even take time off. It's the flexibility to be able to weather a surprise expense. If your car breaks down or you have an unexpected bill show up, maybe there's a medical expense. You have the wealth in place that you can weather that and it's not creating chaos in your life. It's really the independence to make decisions without money being the factor. It's not, what can I afford? It's what are my options and what's the best choice for me? And most importantly, wealth creates time. It's one of the most valuable things that we have as human. It's really the only thing that no matter how much money you have, you can't buy more of. So wealth gives us time and that flexibility, it really is what it gives us is time to do what we want and have choices to make the decisions for the life that we want to live. Um, so the sooner that you understand what wealth gives you, the sooner that you can start building towards it to having a lifestyle where you have the options to do what you want to do.
Yeah, and here we have the four wealth levers that any individual can use to increase their ability to create their long-term plan and reach their goals. So the first key lever here is your ability to earn. So this can be increasing your skills, gaining any certifications, or just finding any meaningful way to grow your income over time. So another example of this could be any side hustles. I remember when I was starting out my career, I was doing some Uber Eats driving and I set aside my actual salary for expenses and my rent and stuff like that. And then I would use any side income for saving. And that leads to the second wealth lever, which is your ability to save. So this is your ability to capture part of um, anything that you earn, and this is what creates your fuel for investing. So here you really want to be mindful of your expenses, and this is where budgeting takes a big role. So you just want to be mindful of how much you're spending and how much of that is discretionary spending that um, you can maybe um, be more mindful of and use that for investing. So that's what the third lever is actually putting those savings to work so that your money is able to grow without much of your own effort. So in this lever, you just want to be really smart with your investing. You want to find things that are low cost, maybe diversify out your portfolio, look for more ETFs, which are exchange traded funds. Um, yeah, you don't, like Sarah said, you don't want to be looking for that next meme stock or investing just off of FOMO, for example, or panic when when you hear that the market's going to drop. And the last key lever here is your ability to protect your plan. So here you just really want to keep that long-term plan safe by avoiding any debt traps like high interest credit cards. Um, I I remember growing up, I had some friends that said, "Forget about it. Let's just throw it on a credit card," and that can be devastating. I mean, we're talking about 18% or really high interest credit cards, and yeah, and then yeah, just avoiding any major financial mistakes, having insurances in place to protect yourself from emergencies. And the best part of these levers is that you control all four of these things, and controlling them early will create massive advantages down the line. So this slide might look familiar if you joined us on a previous webinar. We just wanted to re-emphasize this. On the left here, you can see that we really want you to focus on the long term, where patience beats panic every single time when it comes to the market. So we want you to focus that fundamentals win in the long term. So you want to look out for those investments with that great long-term potential. You want to build a resilient portfolio that you're going to be comfortable with holding through the ups and down swings of the markets. So you want to be comfortable. You want to be able to sleep at night when the market's dropped, um, however much you're comfortable with, and you want to kind of tailor your portfolio to the things that you're comfortable with. And the last part of that is diversification. Um, Having a well-diversified portfolio will allow you to kind of average out those extremes. So when certain asset classes move differently through the different market cycles, you're going to be able to weather that storm and not feel panicked when, um, let's say, if you're invested only in Palantir or something like that, and that stock drops 20%, you're still going to be able to sleep at night.
So let's talk next about how do we build wealth over a lifetime. And wealth isn't built all at once, it grows through stages. It's actually very similar to health in a lot of ways. If you're starting out, if you want to start out running, you don't go run a marathon the first time you go out. You probably go, maybe you start walking around the block, if you don't have prior experience. So wealth, it's not it's a lot like health in that phase. We don't need to do it all at once. Early on, what your job is as a young investor is to build health habits. We want to start getting those good habits in place and making sure that we're getting into the groove of doing those little things that eventually add up and build wealth. During your 20s and your 30s, your focus should be on growing income and increasing your contributions to those savings accounts. So think of those first two levers that Moog was talking about when we were talking about the four levers that we can pull to build wealth. So we want to be, how do we get raises at work? What are we doing to get bonuses? Is there any side gig income that we need to bring in or that we should be bringing in? That's really the focus early on in your career. And then as you see that extra money coming in, let's focus on putting it to work for us, creating that passive income, getting it invested, letting the stock market do the work and getting that compound growth that we see with investing. Our long-term goal here, early on, we have time. Now you have 30, 40 years before you're looking to retire. Let's use that time, automation and good habits, uh, bring the momentum and build that wealth for us. So when we're doing this, we've already mentioned a lot of times is building our savings and building an investing system. Systems help us create predictable results. We can set up automatic transfers into savings or investment accounts, and by doing so, the money, it can go from a paycheck. You can set up direct deposit into multiple accounts. The money doesn't even have to hit your checking account. So what we want to do with our income when we have it, and maybe it's not a paycheck, maybe it's babysitting income, or maybe it's mowing lawn income that you're having and it's not coming in um, regularly or via paycheck. What we want to do with any money that we have is look at a three bucket approach. So the first bucket that we're going to look at, it's our everyday spending bucket. This is our checking account. It's where we take money from to buy food, to buy clothes, other spending needs that we have. The next bucket is our safety bucket. So this is our emergency fund. This is our rainy day fund. What if we have an expense? What if we get a flat tire and the tire actually needs to be replaced? Or there's some other issue that pops up that requires 500, 1,000, even higher amounts. We want to make sure that we have cash set aside that's not invested in the long-term market, so that if we need those funds, that we can just pull the cash and it's there for us. And then finally, we have our wealth bucket. This is where we are investing in the market. We're going out and buying stocks and bonds, ETFs like Moog mentioned, and we're doing it for the long term. The reason we have our emergency fund is because this wealth bucket, it is going to be variable. You know, the market in the long term is up, but in the short term it can be down, and we don't want to have to pull money when it's down. Um, so once our system is in place, we don't have to rely on discipline. We set up those automatic transfers and they just happen. We don't even have to go in and click a button every month. And, one final thing I'll note here is a, a mistake that we often see with young investors is with that wealth bucket, oftentimes money will get into the investment account, but there is another step that has to be taken. You need to make sure that the money is getting invested in the investment account. We don't want to just put money into our Roth IRAs and have the cash sit there. What we want to do is we want to have the cash go in and make sure that we're buying an ETF. And there's ways to automate this process too. But the big message here is, hey, if we're putting cash into an investment account, let's make sure that the cash actually gets invested.
Yeah, great point, Sarah. And yeah, now let's take a look at how to build out that long-term investment approach. So, kind of the overall theme that we've been talking about is your overall strategy matters way more than picking individual investments, right? So, a good long-term approach is going to balance both offense and defense. And what I mean by that is it's going to balance your opportunities for growth through stocks, and it's going to also balance stability in the market during those rough times, right, with things like bonds. And the right balance is going to match both your goals, whether it's short term or long term, um, and the time horizon that comes with that, with the right mix of those assets. You don't want to be super heavily weighted in retirement accounts that you can't touch until you're 59, um, when you need money for a down payment, for example, in the next year, or anything like that. And the younger you are, the more offense you're going to have in um, the more offense that you're going to be able to use, but you still need it to be intentional. So just as you think about that, think about what your goals are, what your time horizon is going to be, and then you're going to want to match up with kind of the right balance of those assets. So another key decision that you have to make is related to taxes. So taxes play a massive role when building long-term wealth, especially over the course of the next 30 to 40 years. And here are just some tools that you can have in your arsenal um, to just kind of regulate that. So a massive tool that you can use when you're young, especially, is the Roth IRA. I'm sure you've all heard about how great it is, but it's particularly great when you're young because your income and tax bracket are going to be relatively low to what you're going to be earning later on in your career. And um, this is just a way for you to pay taxes currently at your current bracket, and then it's going to allow your investments to grow tax-free when you pull it out in retirement. So tax-free growth is just incredibly powerful and something that you need to keep in mind. Um, and along with that, another incredibly powerful tool is using an HSA account if you have a high deductible health plan. So these are great for healthcare savings and it comes with triple tax advantages. And what does that mean, right? So it means that your contributions that you put into your account, they're going to be tax deductible. So it's going to lower your taxable income, meaning that currently you're going to be paying less in taxes. Those investments are going to be able to grow tax-free as well. And as long as you're using it for healthcare purposes, and keep your receipts and everything like that, you're going to be able to pull those distributions later on when you need it, all tax-free as well. And then another powerful tool that everyone should be taking advantage of is your employer 401k or your 403b. If your employer offers a match, you're going to always want to at least contribute up to that match if you're able to. It's instant return and it's literally free money, so that's not something that you want to be leaving on the table. And then lastly, this is your ability to use taxable brokerage accounts. So these are just going to be taxed regularly, but the importance here is that you're able to pull it out before retirement. So this is kind of like your flexible account where you're able to use it for life goals like traveling, a home down payment, starting a business, kind of the things that you're going to need prior to retirement. And tax efficient investing helps your money compound faster um, without the need for feeling like you need higher returns and taking on unnecessary risk.
Awesome. So let's talk about how, as young investors, what formula can we look at to start building wealth? Again, we're going to hammer home that small steps can lead to big outcomes. And the main reason that this is the case is because how much time young investors have. Older investors, folks that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, they can't get those years that young investors have. So no matter how much money they have. So what we need to do is we need to take small steps and let time create those big outcomes. You don't need to start big. You need to be consistent. Starting with any amount, even if it's $20 a month. Um, if you have a after school job or a babysitting gig, or maybe you're already in the workforce and you're in college and you're working, as a teaching assistant. What money every month can you dedicate to saving and getting that invested for long-term growth? Um, once we have things set up, let's start looking at ways that we can increase this. If you get a raise, look at that extra money that's coming in and put it towards that savings amount. Birthday gifts. You know, my grandparents always used to send me cash on my birthday. Take those checks and get them working towards you. And that's the greatest gift that a grandparent would ever want to give their grandchild is long-term wealth. And then also, side gigs. If you are already working in a full-time position, if there is any extra money coming in over, maybe things you're doing after hours on the weekend, that, why are we working that job? If there isn't a specific item that we're saving up for, invest in your future self and be able to retire earlier and put those dollars to work for yourself. Now, a major pitfall here that we need to talk about is what we call lifestyle creep. So, us as humans, a behavior that we all tend to engage in is as we have more money coming in, we tend to spend more money. And sometimes it's not even dollar for dollar. Our spending will increase more than the incremental amount of income that we're earning. So as your income grows, be very cognizant of it. Do not let your spending grow even faster than your income. You know, have these systems in place. Maybe they're percentage based so that we're taking a percentage of income so that if our income is growing, then we're still taking, we take more money as income rises. um, and finally, think in terms of progress, not perfection. We don't need to be perfect. We don't need to do, the maximum amount that we possibly can and stress ourselves out. What we need to do is we need to start, be consistent, and look for opportunities to increase. As long as you're doing those, even with hiccups along the way, what matters is you're directionally headed in the right direction and you're going to set yourself up for success. So let's go back and talk more about that fourth lever, that Moog race, which was protecting our wealth. What are some different ways that we can protect our wealth? Well, we've talked about the emergency fund, and the one of the key components or key features of an emergency fund, and why you'll hear financial advisors talk about it all the time, is that we're preventing you from selling investments that are geared towards your long-term goals at the wrong time. So, if you listen to the news about financial markets, you'll often hear, that the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones is down. We've had days where it's down 5% because some big news event happened, you know, whether it be a pandemic or a tariff announcement. And what we don't want is on those days, if all of our dollars are invested in the stock market, and we need them when something like that is going on, we have to pull out our cash of the stock market when they're at deflated prices. And we've sort of shot ourselves in the foot. So what we want to do is have an emergency fund set up. Now, once you're out in the workforce and working as an independent adult and have, your rent expenses and maybe, insurance expenses, et cetera, your grocery bill, what we want is 3 to 6 months of your expenses set aside in an emergency fund. Until we're at that point, really brainstorm what what big expenses might you have? Do you have a car? Is there a chance of their breaking? Is there you know is there a computer that you've built and you want to make sure that if a part breaks that you're able to replace it? So really think about those types of things that might come up. Um, Insurance, it's something that we have, but we hope that we never have to use. So for health insurance, if there's a medical expense or we get sick and we need to go to the doctor, a lot of you will stay on your parents' insurance. You're allowed to stay on their insurance till you're 26. So this might not be a concern for you quite yet, but just know, medical insurance is it's very important. Um, and that we want to make sure that we have coverage if an unexpected medical expense comes up, or even if we just get the flu and we need to go to the doctor, that we have coverage there. And then also, your car. We want to make sure you have car insurance, and that if you're in an accident, that you're covered, and that you're not left with a lot of liability. Really, what we're looking for insurance is, let's protect ourselves against big unexpected costs. A major pitfall, something that Moog mentioned earlier, is avoiding high interest rate debt. So what we're really talking about here often termed as consumer debt. um, Credit cards, main culprit. Uh, Credit card debt can easily erase years and years of investment growth. You'll see credit card rates that are 19%, 25%, 29%. There is a limit. Congress does limit it, but it's a very high limit. So we want to make sure that if you have a credit card, you are paying it off in full every month. Do not carry a balance on your credit card. The reason you have a credit card is to build a credit history, which is going to help you one day when you want to go buy a house or buy a car. And a lot of credit cards have great perks. You're earning points, and you can travel off of those points, or you can get cash back using a credit card. There are a lot of perks. The thing that we do not want to do is carry a credit card balance and paying extra money to the tune of sometimes, double digit percentages for our everyday purchases. So credit card debt is bad debt. Now, you'll see on the list here, we have such thing as good debt. So think student loans, um, going to college, getting an education. What we're doing is we're investing in ourselves so that we can earn more money down the future. That's, that wealth lever. We're going to earn, and so that we can save and invest more. Uh, Student loans, so you can get a return on that investment and you'll have the money to pay it down. We want to make sure that we're being smart with student loans and we're not overextending ourselves and setting ourselves up to fail. But there's certainly plenty of scenarios where student loans are good debt. Mortgages are the same. If you need to buy it, or if you're looking to buy a house, you're going to put a certain amount of money down as a cash down payment, and then you're going to go and take out a loan to finance the rest of your home purchase, and you'll pay it off over the next 15 to 30 years. This is, A, you need a place to live, and B, again, historically, real estate's appreciating. So our house isn't, we don't necessarily see it as a primary investment, but it's sort of a side effect. Our real estate over the long term is appreciating. So we consider this good debt, and it's not debt to be scared of. You don't want to overextend yourself, even at lower interest rates. Just know that this debt is okay, but in all certain terms, credit card debt is not good debt, and it's something that we can't emphasize enough for you to avoid and make sure that you're paying down your credit cards every month. There is a common myth that goes around. I hear this every so often that carrying a credit card balance can actually help your credit score. That is not true. Don't believe it. Pay down your credit card and avoid those any fees and any interest rate charges on your credit cards. The overall arching message here is protecting the plan is just as important as investing. They're both a requirement for wealth. We work hard on the growth side, so we want to make sure that we're not doing anything to undercut ourselves and compromise all the hard work that we've done.
Yeah, so I bet the credit card companies are the ones that came up with that myth. But
Most likely.
right. So now we want to talk about building out your one-page plan. So here are some key questions that you want to be asking yourselves when building out your long term. So what are your goals? Whether it's long term, thinking about financial independence, thinking about starting a business, how much travel you're going to want to be doing. Is it to own a house one day? Um, and with that, think about what your time horizon looks like. Okay, so maybe I have to set aside this amount of money by this age so that I can afford a down payment on a house, or maybe I'm not thinking about that. Maybe I'm just solely focused on retirement and I just want to focus majority of my investments on that time horizon. And that's going to lead you to start thinking about which accounts you want to start prioritizing, whether it's those taxable brokerage accounts, whether it's your Roth IRA and the 401ks. Um, and you'll be able to kind of create a balance with that. And yeah, and then also how much can I automate monthly, right? So we want this to be an amount that you're feeling comfortable with. You don't want to be overextended because you're feeling like you need to save a certain amount. Especially at the young age, like we mentioned, it's just all about building habits. So even if it's just the $20 a month, or for example, just how much can I put away where I feel comfortable and can start building those habits effectively. And yeah, building out this one-page plan is going to just help you simplify these decisions that you're going to have to make, and then it removes that overwhelm feeling. And this is really where the learning that you've done in the previous webinars and this one is going to turn into action. So we would love for you guys to just pick one step out of these that you can commit to this week. Maybe it's setting a long-term goal and writing it down so that you can focus on it. Maybe it's automating your first contribution, starting an emergency fund, or choosing an account type that you're going to be heavily focusing on. And the common theme that we've been discussing this whole time is that wealth happens through thousands of tiny steps. Um, and yeah, it's going to be able to help you build a long-term plan that's going to be effective for your goals.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, either from this web class or one of the prior web classes, please reach out to us here at Illumination Wealth, either Moog, myself, or any of the other financial planners who've presented. We'd be more than happy to answer your questions and help where we can. If you're interested in learning more and growing your knowledge as an investor, there's plenty of resources here. We've listed a book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. There's plenty of podcasts out there that air, daily, weekly, monthly. Money with Katie, The Money Guy Show, and How to Money are some of the ones that we like to listen to. Um, yeah, so we'll leave it there, and hope you guys have a great rest of your 2025 and a very happy new year. And we'll see you next year.